Welcome to WLNM, the web novel and manga review, hosted by Zeke Changuris.
Welcome to WLNM, the web, light novel, and manga review podcast. We are dedicated to bringing our listeners the very special artists, writers, and industry pros that are part of this explosion of creativity, giving us stories to entertain and inspire us. We'd like to welcome back Gerry, Hines, the author of the original light novel series, The Integrity of the Super Club, Volumes 1 and 2, and ANNO DOMINI, Parts 1 and 2. Welcome back, Gerry. It's going to be fun catching up with you.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
So, all right. It's been several months since we talked, and you've got some new stuff out there. What have you been up to?
Well, just doing a lot of writing. Not a whole lot else you can do during certain worldwide events. But so I published since their last interview, The Integrity of the Super Club, Volumes 1 and 2. Which is my romantic comedy slash lit RPG series. And it's been a blast.
So refresh us on the quick plot summary for Super Club.
So it's pretty much about a crazy tyrant who runs like this fictional, like post-apocalyptic society. And he fell in love with a video game, and he basically makes this daily quota mandate where every citizen has to log at least 1 hour of this game every day. Otherwise, they'll face some kind of ambiguous punishment. And so the main character is like, screw this, I don't want to do this. This is a dumb rule. And when the tyrant basically says there's a way to lift the mandate, like, I've installed a multiplayer part of the game, and if you can defeat me in the game, I'll lift the mandate. And of course, there's a bunch of like hoops and stuff to jump through, and it's probably rigged. Not a spoiler, but the main character like instantly is like, I'm going to do it. So he sets out to like, get better at the game and level up and try and find out like how he can access the multiplayer portion of fighting the tyrant, because there's hoops to jump through. Yes. And but along the way, he meets a girl who has some kind of like, I don't know, like powers or abilities, and like I'll delve into it later on as the story progresses. And they end up going out like pretty early on, which is kind of weird for a rom-com or like any kind of romance, I think.
Yeah, usually like, it's about getting them together in the very last 10 minutes of the rom-com.
Yeah. But this is about like, they hit it off like pretty quickly, and they get together pretty early on. And so it's about like their relationship itself, not trying to get together, but like testing, how well can they hold together while all this crazy, ridiculous stuff is going on. And it's just a really over the top kind of ridiculous series that doesn't take itself too seriously, which was really my aim, because I was tired of writing just really complicated and like serious stuff. So I took a stab at something fun and crazy.
So did you know where you were already going when you started season 2, when you started volume 2? Did you know where you were going, or was it like, all right?
Well, it was kind of it's kind of funny because there wasn't supposed to be any other sequels to the story. Like, it started out, the idea was supposed to be just like a standalone, just one book, just something to kind of take a break from my main series, ANNO DOMINI. And I realized that okay, this is probably going to be like a 2-book thing, and then I'm like, maybe it's going to be 3 books, and then like now it's looking at 4 books now. But yeah, I would say for the most part, I had the main idea and like the main outline, just kind of like loosely plotted out. And so I'm still kind of going along with like the main like checkpoints with it. It's still progressing the way that I wanted it to. But I felt like if I were to try and like shove it into like 1 or 2 books, it would feel rushed. It would be too contrived. So I wanted things to like develop naturally and kind of have a lot of room to, make things go their own course. So that way I'm not really forcing the story. I'm letting it grow on its own. So it's kind of like this weird, like half and half of like plotting with with like pantsing or like discovery writing, where like the background or like the backbone is there, but everything else is just fleshing itself out. And even though it's taking a lot more time and work, I think it's going to be worth it because it feels more natural.
Okay. Well, it seems like you as a writer, and you like as the author, or as what was I came up with the other day, we are the gods of the universe we create. You seem to like these characters enough that you're like, you know what, I really want to hang with them some more. What is it about your characters in this story that make you want to give them more life?
These are probably like my favorite cast of characters out of any of my stories. Just because I gave them so much room to just be like goofy and ridiculous. Because like myself, I have a really just goofy kind of ridiculous side. So I kind of put a lot of just that whimsical nonsense into all my characters. And but also just letting them come to life, like throwing them together and being like, what can they do on their own? And like having them develop. I don't know, it's fun to watch, like kind of the serious side kind of come out of these crazy characters. And just a really colorful, eccentric cast, but having them kind of be serious. And like I say serious and kind of like a loose term, but I don't know, it's just watching them grow and knowing that they're just all goofy creations at the same time. It's kind of fun.
Since it is romantic comedy, do you guard yourself against tropiness, or are you like, let's embrace this?
I don't really pursue tropes, but at the same time, I don't really try to avoid them. It's just whatever happens, like come naturally. And I think if I have to think about it, I'm kind of, less tropey than I am tropey, I guess. At least, that's just me kind of like thinking about it right now. But I don't know, like I don't really think about that too much, and whatever happens just kind of happens. Although sometimes I do deliberately try to avoid, like certain, I guess, like tropes or like cliches and things like that, just because I've always had this weird way of looking outside the box and kind of, cutting against the grain sometimes, for better or worse, just trying to make stories that haven't really been told, or at least not in that style, And Super Club is definitely a really unique kind of style, I feel like, or at least from what I've been told.
Okay. Well, do you, with Super Club, do you try and, okay, let's see. I'm trying to phrase this so it makes sense to somebody else other than my brain. Have you tried to, okay, here it is. Now I'm backing my own train up. In this kind of rom-com story, what's your favorite kind of scene to write in the rom-com? Is it is it dialogue? Is it like some sort of zany event? Is it what is it, those occasional sweet and tender moments that remind you that this is a romance too?
Yeah, it's kind of like all of the above, really. I'm not sure which is actually my favorite.
What might come easiest?
Probably dialogue and just goofy, like subcontext details. Super Club is just loaded with all kinds of just small little ridiculous things on like every page, like just building the world. I'll just throw in like random things about the world because it's like a completely fictional world. And I don't know, just I think dialogue is probably the most fun. And also just like building like action scenes also, which I haven't really fully gotten into yet. But that's gonna be coming up in like volume 3 is when I get really in depth with that.
Okay.
And just kind of like fleshing things out that way and thinking about like strategies and, how can I like really use different aspects of like this game that they have to play and like different aspects of the world. And I don't know, just like world building and I guess dialogue and goofy things.
Well, thinking of world building, you're more serious of the two stories that we're talking about, Anno Domini. Um, what is uh, what is the most integral part of this world that you've built uh, in this other story?
For Anno Domini?
Yeah.
Well, that takes place in modern day Chicago. And I would say just really trying to grasp like a realistic take on the world and like putting it through kind of I don't really want to say like a philosophical lens, but just, picking out all of these different like cultural issues and things like that, or not even just like issues, just like things that I notice. I don't know, just really a big bite of realism in that story.
Well, which is harder to write, realism in Anno Domini or the completely farcical in Super Club?
Realism for sure. Because with that, I really have to base it off of something. And, this is like taking a lot of things in real life and, obviously like actual real life locations. So I kind of have to do my research. I kind of have to, live inside Google Maps for a little bit and try and like see my way around. And I actually took a couple of trips to Chicago a few years ago with a camera to do some like location scouting. So with Super Club, I don't have to do that. It's just all in my head. And I can be as crazy or realistic with that as I want. So I would say it's definitely a little difficult to stick with the realism, at least for me.
Okay. So give us a little more of an overview of Domini. What's our protagonist doing? I guess that's the most gender neutral word I can use. Protagonist. What's our protagonist doing?
So he's a pretty much just a high school student who learns that his vice principal is an angel. And it kind of starts out as like this whole like hero's journey, like you're the chosen one kind of thing, which, it probably wasn't the best way for me to start a story because it's been done so much. But I don't know, like I was kind of going for like this shonen facade kind of thing, even though it's like a sentence story. It's supposed to be like really serious, I guess. But so he basically takes on this role of being kind of like a savior, but he's given like really ambiguous instructions and like powers that he's basically just supposed to like figure out, or at least find somebody who can like help him along, because of course, the angel and all powerful and all knowing just be like, oh yeah, here you go, just figure it out, I can't help you. So for better or for worse, I kind of went that route with it. But in a sense, the main character of that story, Chris, is pretty much based off Jesus Christ.
Okay.
And kind of like how his powers and like kind of how, like he views people and just how he's just humble and kind of like carries himself. And it's going to get a little more in depth with, like how he starts making waves and people start reacting to him, because of course he's going to get a lot of pushback, both from like the realistic aspect of things and from like the fantasy side of that story. And he's just gonna basically try and figure out like how to be the glue to hold society together, or just like help people out, help them with themselves, help them, with like each other, and help them against like the greater darkness that's slowly bubbling underneath the surface of everything, and trying to like test himself with that too, and try and find whatever guidance he can, because he's still learning. I mean, he's a high schooler, and I'm sure that that high schoolers don't really know exactly how to handle a lot of things.
They don't know nearly as much as they think they do.
Exactly. So he's kind of stuck in that sense. And I guess that's also like a big theme of that story, is most of the protagonists in that story, like they're all teenagers, and even like in Super Club, like they're all like high schoolers. So I kind of have to throw in like this level of just like ignorance and like learning and not really knowing what's going on, which, might frustrate some readers, because they're like, why is the character being so stupid, or blah, blah, blah. but it's like, well, they're teenagers. Like
Well,
they're
how do you put yourself in the uh, how do you put yourself in the shoes of a teenager? How do is it reflection or is it
it's a little bit of reflection. It's also just, like guesswork, because I don't really deal with the kids these days. I kind of feel so old saying that, but no, I just kind of like think back about how I was and how I just had like this kind of like arrogance and like I was like naive and like thought I knew everything or could do everything and just constantly just like, oh, I failed at that, I failed at this. Like, okay, I thought I was so sure of myself, but now I'm like, not really so sure. Which is, I still go through things like that because it's always just one big learning process throughout your whole life.
yes it
And
is.
just trying to like imagine that and just I don't know, not so sure if I'm doing it 100% right, but
I don't
just
think
trying.
I don't think any of us are ever 100% sure. um I mean, my wife says I have a complex, so about I never feel like I'm measuring up, and because I I was the kid in high school. I was most likely to succeed. I was voted done most for the school. I was the student council president. I was in charge of like 3 separate clubs, and so she's like, you seem to have a complex that you never feel like you're measuring up, and so you're always trying to do another thing to level up, basically. And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. And I guess I can identify with that. But yeah, I understand the idea that you're always wanting to try and do more, and the moment you think you've got it, you're like, oh no, I
Yeah.
don't have it.
Exactly. So like I definitely like amp up that kind of idea in Anno Domini and starting with like Super Club once they figure out that they got kind of deep into something that they probably shouldn't have.
Yeah, well, then I mean, and your chosen outlet as a writer definitely opens you up to that self-hating criticism that almost every writer has.
It's there for sure. I'm my own harshest critic.
Yes, I find that I think most of us are. Any writer who writes and it's like, oh, this is the greatest thing I've ever written, you never want to read that piece ever.
Yeah, right.
So, what is it in what is it that attracts you to? I mean, these are two very different genres, and for many people, it's difficult just to write one genre. How is it that you're like, are you partitioning your brain so you can work on the problems to do different stories at the same time, or is it more like, okay, this week I'll work on this week I'll work on that?
I guess you could say I'm just a really talented overthinker. um, I for like a long time, I guess like pretty much my whole life, yeah, I've kind of been open to like being like multi-genre. Like even before I knew that term, that's just kind of how I was, just always like open-minded and like looking at all the different kinds of writing styles, kinds of stories you can write. And like now it's like an actual goal of mine to be multi-genre, and that means just very different writing styles, like not just even like stories to tell, but just like prose and narrative and different like literary devices. And I don't know, I just have a head full of craziness and I just try and let it out, and it finds its way on the pages and other creative outlets.
Okay, so in I mean, Domini seems to be definitely a more serious work. Is there a, are you trying to promote an underlying theme in one of them in it, or is it more to be taken as at face value of the words that you're reading and the story that you're reading, or is there a larger subtext involved in it? Because it sounds like a story where you're trying to tell people that even if you're the chosen one and you're there to spread hope, it's not that easy a job.
Yeah, kind of. It's I don't know, like I never really thought of it quite like that. It's just first and foremost, I just want it to be an entertaining story. I just want it to have like good action sequences eventually, which I'm slowly building my way up to that, because the characters still, at least by the end of volume 2, they're not like formally trained in any kind of like combat or anything. Like they're still kind of learning their powers. So like first and foremost, just have like an entertaining story. Um, Not really trying to, like set up it like a moral to the story or anything. Just have all these different like viewpoints on different things, because it's an ensemble cast, like lots of characters, all very different, all have their own spin on things. And I guess I just really want to capture like the idea that we can't just get along. Like it's as sad as it is, and especially just seeing it all over TV and stuff now, like in the news and everything. It's scary times for sure. But just this fact that I've always noticed how just some people just can't get along, and like even like growing up having like my big group of friends and stuff, and how I always thrive to like try and bring everybody together and like hang out together, and there's always like one or two people that just, even though they're my friends, they don't get along with each other, and they just have like these different points of view on all kinds of stuff, or just like bad timing or whatever. And that's one of like the biggest underlying themes of Anno Domini, is just like philosophical warfare, and just trying to filter that into this kind of like an anime action thing. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just hoping that it's going to turn out okay in the end. But that's really just one of my themes. So,
Hey, sometimes groping around in the dark, you can come up with a diamond, and sometimes it's a piece of coal. So
yeah, I'm groping for hope.
yeah. So how is it? Is it a challenge? You spoke about having lots of different characters in there. Is it a challenge to, lack of a better term, keep them straight? Like making sure that when you're writing them, they stay distinct?
I actually think I kind of have a talent for that, because people have said that, even though there's a lot of characters in that one, um, it's kind of easy to like see how all these characters kind of stick to their own lane. I guess like the big challenge is, not introducing too many at once to confuse the reader, which I might be guilty of for both of my series, actually. In like the first books, there's just a lot of pronouns happening. But it's, I don't know, like fairly simple for me to kind of like keep them all organized and keep them consistent with who they are and what they do.
Okay. What kind of, and I've been talking recently with one of my students. I found out that she's been writing a story and having a web novel, and as she's been doing it actually since middle school, and she's got quite a few readers at this point, and she enjoys writing this story. And so what advice would you give to younger writers? If you can say, this is give a piece of sage advice for younger writers who still may be in school as they're trying to write their first stuff.
I would say first and foremost, write the kind of story that you would want to read, and just try and have fun with it. Like try not to take yourself way too seriously. Like it is an art form after all, which any kind of art isn't an expression of yourself. It's kind of like an extension of your voice. So just, try and like think about like who you are and like what kind of what voice you want to extend, and just have fun with it. Like, and don't care too much if it's not good at first. Like you all have to start somewhere. I had to start somewhere. All of the great writers and artists had to start somewhere. So just have fun with it and do what you want to do, and like be open to feedback though. Be prepared for people to just totally shoot you down or try to belittle you, and just take the information that you can glean from it, and just have fun and just do what you want to do with it.
Yeah, because I know she was that's good advice, because I know she was worried about. She's like, I might have to go on to this different direction, and she's like, since the beginning, it's been going towards this, towards these two characters being together, but it just doesn't seem like it's going to work. And so, she was nervous about like altering course at this point. And I'm like, sometimes that's what you need to do. There's a natural flow, and even though you may have thought of it one way, it may not always work out the way you anticipate. Like life, it doesn't always work out the way you plan.
Yep, that's true. Just flow with it.
Yeah. Especially since most of us are writing because we want to write, and we write because we enjoy doing it. And that's I think one of the big keys to all of this. So in the not pounding out the keys kind of way, have you had a chance to read anything new recently?
I've been reading some things. I actually just finished a Dean Koontz book, my first one that I've ever read by him. So that one was kind of nice. It was Night Chills. Like, okay. I think it was like one of his earlier ones, like from the 70s. It was good. Not like mind blowing in any way. I think because, it might be kind of like outdated, or like I'm just so used to like this, like that kind of writing style. Like it's kind of like cliched now. So there's that. Reading Parable of the Renegades by Gio Kuanai. Yeah. And Conquest Harem by Digital God. like both of those books I beta read for, and just like seeing them grow, and like now they're in like their actual like final forms. It's like I watched them grow up. They grow up so fast.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great way to put it.
And like admittedly, I've been reading at like a snail's pace. Just I don't know, just not really doing a lot with like books these days. I'm kind of in like a lull. It's kind of like taking a break from like both reading and writing, because I was just going at it for so intensely for so long. And so yeah, just kind of reading some things here and there.
If you want a book that you can like read in short chunks, and an absolutely fascinating books is the complete works of Lefkado Herndon. He is a 18th century gentleman who was born in Greece, became a writer for newspapers, worked in England, then the United States, worked his way across country, and then ended up in Japan. And while in Japan, he starts recording what daily life is like. He starts recording what their stories that haven't been written down before. This man eventually, and this is Meiji era Japan, he is granted citizenship.
Oh, wow.
By the emperor, who is like, you've done so much for us as a people. We are granting you citizenship. And it's amazing. His passages he's written on the writing style are beautiful. It's a man who's really taken to like drinking in everything around him, and you can read like little just chunks, you 2 or 3 pages, and you're like, wow, that was nice. It's like sipping a glass of wine. You're like, wow, this was good. Now,
yeah,
it's an older writing style, so he may go on for like, it looks like a paragraph, but it's actually a sentence with lots of lots of commas, but it's fascinating. Yeah, Lefkado Herndon. It's just spectacular book. If you are interested in Japan, and if you are interested in like what a glimpse of what actual life was like, he does a spectacular job at describing it all. And Yeah, I keep preaching this book to a lot of people who are.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Send me the link for
Yeah,
it.
I will definitely.
I'll check it out.
All right. Before we wrap up today, anything else you'd like to throw out at us? Anything we can be looking forward to in the coming months?
Well, right now, my next book that's going to be out is actually not an OELN.
Okay.
It's a collaboration novel that I'm doing with a friend. It's pretty much done. I just have to edit it. But like I said, I'm just kind of taking a break from that, and
Hey.
kind of at this point where like I open it up on my computer and I look at it and I'm like, yeah, not today.
Hey,
So
when that's done, let me know. I'll book you both, and we can talk about writing partnerships, because that in itself is a whole special ball of wax. Because
it's
writing with somebody there's a lot of give and take, and you got to have some sort of chemistry to make it work.
It's so fun. Well, like, she's my friend that I've known for a long time, and this is actually a project that we started like 7 or 8 years ago. And finally, because of just like life and like having to work and just different schedules, we were finally able to be like, okay, now we can do this. So we just cranked it out, and it's pretty much done now. I just got to finish it. So that's going to be my next thing. And I have another book actually, and I'm going to spill the beans right here, right now.
All right.
I have a secret book that I'm writing, and it is an OELN, and
Okay.
I have all the artwork for it now.
That sounds great.
I just have to finish writing it. So stay tuned for that one.
Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you for coming on and talking with me again today. And I look forward to hearing more about your 2 upcoming projects. As always.
All right.
Yeah, I'm here to support you guys as writers, and want to get your work out there and noticed, and let you tell your own story. So until next time, if you like what you heard here, please click the subscribe button, and we'll continue to bring plenty of guests to you, and help support this now year-old channel, WLNM. And we hope to highlight the best that independent creators have to offer. Until next time, keep reading.
This has been a WLNM podcast.